Muy buenos días. Vamos a iniciar la segunda y última sesión de este Seminario Internacional y para ello vamos a solicitar que haga uso de la palabra el excelentísimo doctor Janusz Kapsik, que, como saben ustedes, es miembro de la Academia Polaca de Ciencias y miembro correspondiente para Polonia de la Barcelona Economics Network. Tiene la palabra.
Gracias, muchas gracias. I have a presentation.
Sí.
¿La presentación? ¿Para la presentación?
Él tiene la presentación, mi presentación. Oh, sí. Ok. Sí. First of all, I would like to thank very much for the invitation because it is a big honor to me, and also.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh,
No.
This one, yes. This one. Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank very much the organizers, Professor Alucha, for this invitation. It's very important because if you look at the history of these meetings we have for so many years, there is always some very, very important issue considered. For instance, this issue is like sustainability. I'm sorry for speaking English, but I will try to speak very, very clearly. Okay, and now I would like to say something about mathematics, the role of mathematics, because there is a new direction now that more and more people are speaking about mathematics, in the context of sustainable world. It's very, very obvious. Why? Because, for instance, if you take the definition, so you have to, let's say, use resources now so that your children and grandchildren will also be able to use the resources. But so you know how the dynamics of population will be, because you must know that, for instance, your children will be one of not 2 billion people, but 3 billion, for instance. So you need some models to determine what will be the population when your children will come to age. And your grandchildren in 30 years, these are unique models. You cannot speak about, let's say, just verbally about this. Okay, now, what my talk is about? First of all, sustainability. If you look at the very essence, of course, this is a fashionable word, for sure. Everybody speaks sustainability computing, whatever. Everything is sustainable now. But there is a brilliant concept. The concept is very brilliant, socially, economically. There is some history. I will speak about the history a little bit. And also what is very difficult is that it's very difficult to operationalize. Operationalize means to show that it works, because you can speak very many words, but at the end of the day, they say, okay, so tell me, show me how to use the concept of sustainability, and you are in trouble. And then the role of mathematics and mathematical modeling and some constructive initiatives in this field. This is very important. I would like basically to try to, let's say, advocate the use of formal tools. Mathematics is a symbol of a formalized tools, mostly mathematical modeling, simulation, and so on. But anyway, that we want to do something concrete, And the main, let's say, goal will be to how to operationalize this problem. Operationalize in the sense that what to do to solve the problems, Okay, now if you look at sustainable development, so this is one of the most crucial concepts concerning the way how the world should develop and operate. It's very, very philosophically, it's very important. And basically, this is a history which was mentioned in some other talks that this was in fact born in 87 and was named after Brundtland, who was a former minister of Norway. Basically, this is in that report they did not give a definition definition in the sense of us. Definition is definition, in logic or in, let's say, science. They just were speaking about, let's say, the concept. And basically it was something what I mentioned in the beginning, that you have to use the resources now, produce something, manufacture something, so that your children and grandchildren will also be able to live well, for instance, not use everything now. Now, so this is in fact something very, let's say, just for everybody. Now, the next step would be in 2015, there was an Agenda 230, and they precisely specified steps, you know, which would be important. Of course, this is precisely specified steps should be meant, let's say, not up to my standards, because my standards are very precise, and they are precisely only, you know. But what they did is they practically formulated the so-called 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. This was very important, you know. And these goals are something like this, you know. I will not speak about this in detail because they were mentioned in many talks. But if you look carefully at them, so you see something very dangerous for us, let's say, for people who would try to operationalize them. Because, for instance, no poverty. Of course, everybody knows that is very important. But what they did is they formulated 7 targets, 13 indicators, and 5 outcome targets, you know. Okay, zero hunger, very good, you know. But they let's say, decompose this sustainable development goal to 8 targets, 14 indicators, 5 outcome targets, and 3 means of achieving targets, you know, and so on, 17. So you can see one very dangerous thing, that they, in goodwill, because they were very good people, but they were politicians. They did not know that, for instance, if you have like 8 targets, and the analysis is very difficult, you know, because you have 8 targets, you must somehow, let's say, balance these targets, and this is very difficult. So you see, if you see those 17 goals, so you see that the number of targets, indicators, you know, outcome targets, whatever, is very, very high, you know. So we, let's say, people who want to try to operationalize them, not verbally, but concretely, you know, you will have very big problems. Too many things, too many aspects, you know. You cannot, the normal models cannot handle so many aspects. Our human brain cannot handle so many aspects, you know. So what they did is they, in fact, were trying to analyze one aspect by another, you know. Not, let's say, comprehensively, which was needed, because this all kind of issue is very important. Why? When it is comprehensively discussed, you know, not, let's say, one by one, because one by one is like a partial view only. The most important is a total view. Okay, so as you see, there is a very big problem here. Now, what happens, you know? So these are 17. For instance, the partnership in the goals, the 17th goal is 19 outcome targets, 24 indicators. Well, if somebody wants to use this formally, it's very, very difficult. You know, of course, verbally you can speak everything, but there is no result in that. Okay, now there are so many targets, and as I mentioned, there is a no comprehensive approach in this area, how to deal with those you know, goals. Why? Because it's easier said than done. So one of the most, let's say, important, most famous critic of this kind of approach was Robert Solow. Robert Solow is Nobel Prize in Economics '87 from MIT, and he wrote a very important paper, which was a result of a special lectures of Nobel Prize winners, you know, and in Massachusetts, I think that they were somehow, let's say, no, the most Nobel Prize winners are from MIT, so everybody knows, so you know this. They were most MIT people. Okay, so Solow said exactly what I mentioned, you know, that, you know, if you want to do something deeper, you cannot take into account 24, you know, indicators for, times 17 and so on, and it makes no sense completely. So you must approach this in a more comprehensive way, more, let's say, integrated way. Okay. Now, so there was a simpler and more constructive proposal by Jeffrey Sachs, Schmidt, Traub, Mazzucato, Meissner, and Nakicenovich. Well, this was a so-called concept of so-called sustainable development goals transformations, you know. Of course, the very essence is the same, you know, to make life, let's say, good for the next generations. But what they did is they somehow integrated as some aspects. For instance, education, gender and equality, and so on and so on and so on. They had said. 6, you can, let's say, understand, because everybody knows that there is a Miller's magic number, 7 plus minus 2. So people cannot, let's say, understand something which is an aspect which is more than 7 plus minus 2 aspects. So 17 is very difficult to understand. So what they did is they somehow, let's say, tried to show that if you want to do some deeper analysis, it's better to have a smaller, number of aspects. So Jeffrey Sachs is a very interesting economist, very famous, but he's controversial. So he was, in fact, very instrumental for the Eastern European transformation, but was very much criticized. Why? Because he supported China. But of course, he was right in some aspects, and he was not right in other aspects. And also Nebojsa Nekichenowicz, this is a good friend of mine. Why? Because he's from Serbia, in fact, and he's working in Vienna, and University of Vienna. And I've been meeting with him very often because he was a vice director of the famous International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Austria. It's one of the most famous think tanks in the world. I was working there since the 70s. And basically what they did is they did exactly the same. Philosophically, the world should develop in this sustainable way, But you must be able to operationalize, means. It means, because Nebojsa was doing mathematical modeling also. So he knew that you cannot, let's say, have 24 goals because nobody will understand this. Okay, now what happens? I tell you something about this institute because it's very interesting. So this institute is in Luxembourg, close to Vienna. it was founded by many nations in '72, by Russia and America, but also by Canada, very many nations. It was one of the most famous think tanks. I've been associated with them since the late 70s until now, And this is in the palace because the Austrian government gave this palace for 1 shilling. And 1 shilling was 10 cents. They gave it to the palace, and the institute was here. Now what happens, what they were founded to solve crucial world problems, but not, let's say, the problem like, for instance, how to optimize, let's say, transportation system in a small city or a small village, but how to solve the problem for regional development or maybe large international rivers. And I was here, in fact, the first director was Howard Reifa. Howard Reifa was very interesting, one of the best decision scientists in the world, and he was a close friend of Lord Fizade. So he's let's say, there is a connection with our society. Well, I was doing something, about many projects on the regional agricultural development and large international rivers. These are big problems, very big problems. Yes, and if you look at something which is very interesting, we started also with something like sustainability, but we use different words. So our paper with Straszak on 84, which started such area, was about integrated regional development. Of course, this parole. Well, you can integrate it, then, and sustainable is like integrated, but a little bit different. And what was very interesting was that in our group, there were 2 Nobel Prize winners who were working in economics, Chalin Koopmans and Leonid Kantorovich. Kantorovich was a very, very interesting thing because he was a great mathematician. And he was the one who, in the 30s, wrote a book about mathematics in operations research. In fact, linear programming was one. He formulated the idea before Danzig. George Danzig was after World War II, in fact, but Danzig did not get the Nobel Prize winner because of political reasons. But anyway, and Kantorovich was a very nice person. He wrote a book about functional analysis because he was a great mathematician. But this was very good for me, like a young person, to speak to Kantorovich, for instance. Okay, so you see. Is this completely new? No, because people were trying to do similar ideas in the past, but for different names. But now it's more pronounced. Okay. Now, in recent years, there is something like this. Sustainable is what they call in English sexy word. Very, nice, sexy word like this one. But the problem is that it's not operational in the traditional way of doing by politicians, and that's why they started to formalize this problem. So there is a book in Springer, there is a book, Mathematics for Sustainability, and also the most famous paper is by Simon Levin. Levin is from Princeton University. He's a very famous guy. The Mathematics of Sustainability, notice of the ACM. ACM is a very, very prestigious society. And what they do is they try to show that in order to operationalize this, you should use some formal models, not possibly in a different way. So basically, Levin wrote something like this. So he formulated mathematical challenges here and say, okay, we should develop a statistical mechanics of ecological communities. Okay, this is very, very different, but statistical mechanics is that because they develop, they develop, and there are some uncertainty and random thing, this works very well. Then model the emergence of an ecological pattern. Emergence is very interesting because, if you look at let's say, analysis of science, so there is something like this. Normally, they analyze something like an evolution. Something changes slowly and so on. Emergence is something that changes very abruptly. For instance, the best way is, for instance, photography. Photography was developing very well, like this one, but at some time, digital photography came in, and these big companies like Kodak or Agfa, they went down because there was an emergence. Emergence was this company. Now, and they determine indicators for critical transition between states and develop schemes for robust governance of multi-scale systems. Multi-scale systems, why? Because all these systems here, they develop in different time scale. Something is very fast, something is very slow. And in fact, what they try to do is they try to show that, for instance, you must use something like control theory, system theory, game theory, because there are so many aspects. You cannot say verbally about them, because verbally is not enough, because they don't differentiate different, let's say, options that you take. Okay, I'm finishing it. Now, what is very important is there something, what they propose, and they say that it's very difficult to do a good thing without formal means, is the so-called, problem of global commons. Global commons is a very, very important concept now. It means everything in the world that is not subject to local jurisdiction. For instance, there are 4 global commons. This is high seas, atmosphere, Antarctica, and the outer space. So they say that these are the global commons. Why? Because they are not subject to local jurisdiction. They are here for everybody. And this is, in fact, what they show is that these aspects are extremely important, and you must use some formal tools, otherwise you will not do this. Okay, and they say also that you must use systems theory, control theory, game theory, mathematical theory, so voting theory, mechanism design, and so on and so on. Why? Because it's very difficult to speak only by narration, because you will not be able to differentiate, the options you choose, So basically, to conclude, I would like to say that, first of all, sustainability is an extremely important concept, and that's why we should be happy here, because Professor Alcira started this, this series of sessions about such an important topic. And what is important is that we should look for operationalizing this concept. It means if somebody asks, okay, so tell me what to do to have a sustainable development, because now it's blah, blah, blah only. And so we should use some formal tools. And also, I think what is important is that we should be very, very much concerned about the interdisciplinary nature of this. You cannot use, for instance, just this kind of, like sociology, psychology, whatever, just alone. No, you must use a spectrum of all kinds of approaches and sciences, because this is a very, very complicated concept. So thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias, profesor Janusz Kapsik. Es siempre un honor tenerle entre nosotros y, evidentemente, su libro sobre matemáticas para la sostenibilidad es realmente una recogida de información y tratamiento que yo creo que da solución a su interrogante, ¿no? De manera que muy contentos, muy satisfechos, ya sabe que aquí tiene su casa, profesor. Vamos a solicitar que suba al estrado para hacer uso de la palabra al excelentísimo doctor Jan Askenazi, que nos va a hablar de un tema muy, muy, muy interesante, de manera que lo ha conseguido ligar mecanismos del cerebro con los nuevos sistemas de ecología. Profesor.
Thank you. Hello to all of you. Where is here? Doesn't work.
No, I will go.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. Then I am not here as a neurologist because I am the best neurologist between economists, and not because I am the best economist among the neurologists. But I am here because, and I shall tell it in Spanish, con el profesor Jaime Gil Aluja trabamos amistad a raíz del seminario con el profesor del Seminario Internacional Pansel Europe, caminando por los senderos de la entropía, cerebro y economía. Then it means, after knowing Professor Jaime Gil Aluja, one day we found a common subject to sing to it. And I was looking at him and thinking that he knows neuroscience. And probably he was looking at me and thinking that I am a good specialist in economics. But it was the first bridge. It was open between me and Professor Aluja. Then suddenly he introduced me in the fuzzy logics, and we found together a very important field, which I shall try to explain it now. There is a disease, a very severe disease, a Parkinson disease. It's a degenerative disease. Now, when you are in a phase, in an advanced phase, then you are like that. You are completely demented, and you are moving and trembling, and you cannot walk, and this is a Parkinson disease. Then it starts very early, and it starts with a very delicate sign. What is the sign he starts? Oh, thank you. It starts with an inequality of moving the hands. The right hand moves with a smaller amplitude than the left one. Then if you see an inequality in moving your hands, then this one moves a little bit low than the left one. Then this is the first sign. From the first sign to the last one, it may be 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 12 years. Then if you are a neurologist or a neuroscientist and you examine a patient and you see that there is an inequality. You can't tell him, look, be quiet, very soon you shall become like this. Because this is not medicine, this is a criminal medicine. To say to a person who is energetic, working, is full of success, to tell him like this, something like that. Then the solution is the following: a tentative algorithm for neurological disorders, Parkinson's disease, after Professor Jaime Gilaluja told me about the phasic logic. You can tell somebody, look, I found a very small sign, and you are obliged to come to me every year for the next 6 years. I shall examine, and we shall see what we have to do. This is the solution. Now, thanks to our president, Professor Jaime Gilaluja, we wrote a paper together. Almost, he wrote the phasic thinking of this paper, and it's called A Tentative Algorithm for Neurological Disorders, Parkinson's disease, and it will appear probably very soon. Now, I shall go further. Now, in October 2019, due to this colleague of mine and friend of mine, the member of Academy, Professor Dr. Valerio Ioan Frank, he proposed me to receive, to be laureate of Pierre Werner Award in the 10th of October 2019, because I presented at the Romanian Academy a paper about the fact that the economy is not an exogenous science. Economy is here, inside the brain. We have here an economic system which is called the reward system. And this reward system is like that. Is a center, first of all, here in our prefrontal area, we have the decision-making center. All what comes, millions, trillions of impulses from all over the 100 million neurons we have in our brain. It arrives here in this area, and this is the last 30 years of neuroscience. And here we take the decision, yes, I go to Barcelona, I don't go to Barcelona, I speak about this, I don't speak then this. And to this decision-making center arrives also the economic system, the reward system. And this is based on an infrastructure that is called the economic triangle. You can see it here. You have the hippocampus, the VTA, and nucleus accumbens. Nucleus accumbens is a center which gives us the pleasure of doing the work. It works in orgasm, and it works when we buy some obligation and we earn a lot of euro and so on. Then this is the basis of the economic system of our brain. Then there is, except the exogenous economic science, we have an economic inside brain system. Now the brain secret. All the neurons in our brain are working in a dialogue. Each neuron is related to 1,500 other neurons, and they speak between them, and everyone understands what the other is saying. Not as in television when three people are speaking together, we look at them, we don't understand nothing, but we continue to look. And I want to to go now to the subject, why not a sustainable world? The demographic growth shows that in 2100 we shall be 10 billion people on the planet. I shall give you only one example. In Belgium and in Philippines, we had at a certain point in 1900 the same population. In 2050, there will be 12 million people instead of 7 million in Belgium, and in Philippines we shall have 127 million people instead of 7 million. Now, la disparition de certaines espèces biologiques, la disparition des forêts, les ressources d'eau, les changements climatologiques, la migration, l'élargissement de le trou d'ozone, la pandémie Covid-19, les earthquakes, tsunamis, les irradiations, l'impact astéroïde, les guerres normatives et les guerres nucléaire, la force nucléaire de la Russie et de l'Amérique est assez pour détruire dans 2 minutes toute la planète. Now, a very short presentation of our life on this planet. Life appeared as a single cell 3.5 billion years ago. The multicellular life appeared 600 million years ago. The hominide anthropo, from where we are coming, appeared 2.8 million years ago, and Homo sapiens appeared 1.8 million years ago. All the speakers have presented here at this very important session. Very interesting presentations, but putting together the 3 outstanding presentations of Professor Jaime Gila-Luja about Michael Mayer Nobel Prize, El carbono permite vida, Professor Miguel Metzeldin, El desarrollo sostenible, and Enrique López González, Los contables salvaron el planeta with question sign, I will answer the question, why not a sustainable world? Fundamental obstacles to achieving a sustainable world, national conflicts, discrepancy between rich and poor, shift of professions. Many professions in the next 20 years will disappear, and the robot will take out their place. New high-tech society, a new ecosystem with a profound nature disharmony appeared on this planet. What's the man's story? Hominid anthropo, afterwards the appearance of Homo sapiens, the appearance of cyborg, the appearance of robo-sapiens, and afterward, Stephen Hawking said, the human race has no future if it doesn't go into space. Then we have to reach the position of Homo galacticus. There was a Cooper age, an industrial age, a computer age. The age of artificial intelligence, we live it now. There will be a cosmic age, or vamos al inferno. Why not a sustainable world? Because human survival is a function of the interrelationship between the speed of planet degradation and the speed of becoming Earth independent. The action time, according to myself, has been exceeded. Thank you.
Sí, muchas gracias por su generosidad y sus palabras elogiosas en torno a los varias personas intelectuales aquí presentes que han realizado sus intervenciones. Y sí, es cierto, la palabra entropía fue la causante de que nos conociéramos y en un congreso internacional y que desde posiciones distintas llegáramos a un consenso tal que hemos terminado ya un trabajo sobre precisamente un algoritmo para la detección precoz del Parkinson y que ya está en prensa y que va a salir en un libro dedicado a una gran personalidad. Bien, pues aquí tenemos una muestra eficiente y eficaz de la necesidad de trabajar conjuntamente y de manera transversal. Es la riqueza. El mestizaje es la riqueza. Lo otro es la nada. Perdonen, que me he alargado demasiado. Muchas gracias y yo les propongo que en lugar de hacer el coffee break después, lo hagamos ahora para no acercarlo demasiado a la comida. ¿Les parece bien? ¿Sí? Muy bien, pues vamos a descansar un poco con un coffee break y luego continuamos. Vamos a continuar con nuestras sesiones y esta vez el ponente es el doctor Gusakov, que es el presidente de la Academia de Ciencias de Bielorrusia. Y, como saben ustedes, la situación política internacional no le ha permitido estar con nosotros, pero sí ha enviado la grabación correspondiente. Así pues, tiene la palabra el doctor Gusakov, que nos va a hablar de el modelo económico de Bielorrusia en un contexto de desarrollo sostenible global. Damos paso a las palabras del doctor Gusakov.
Academician Vladimir Gusakov, chairman of the Presidium of the National Academy of Sciences of Belarus, on the topic Belarusian economic model in the context of the global agenda of sustainable development. The times of changes that humanity is experiences nowadays requires a new approach at the world order, human environment, and even the very meaning of life. The issues of stability and security of system, starting from the planet as a whole to individuals and their microcosm, are a real mainstream in science and practice. The balance of the resource movement, the circulation of substances in nature, which have been developed over millennia, now are being distorted. This leads to an increase of cataclysms, frequency and scale. The United Nations and the countries of the world since the historic Rio de Janeiro conventions, as a result of summit meeting the planet Earth in 1992, have taken active steps in the formation and implementation of sustainable development initiatives. The latest developments, in particular digitalization and artificial intelligence, unmanned solutions, nature-like technologies, materials with targeted properties, allow us to make a qualitative leap forward toward sustainability. The global economy is changing. The existing world order is being destroyed. The confrontation between the world's major economies is escalated. International value chains are being consciously destroyed under the guise of sanctions. Protectionism rapidly increases. In present-day conditions, the economic relations are becoming more complex. Economics is turning into an instrument of ideological and political struggle. Therefore, its role is significantly growing. The modern socially oriented and state-regulated market model of the economy in our country is unique. It's characterized as follows: strong state participation in the economic activity in accordance with national interests, an extensive social security system, accessible system of education and health care, effective practice of material production in industry and agriculture, diverse service sector, IT sector, transport, trade, etc. The wide use of scientific achievements and innovation, the rational use of resources, foreign economic policy independence, and the openness of the economy are the main attributes of the Belarusian social economic model uniqueness. These advantages ensure its stability in the most adverse environmental conditions. Certainly, the authenticity of the Belarusian model is also determined by the peculiarities of historical development, its location, natural and climatic conditions, and the population world view. The striving to live and walk in peace on one's own land, the absence of fear for one's future ensures the consolidation of society. The state's social responsibility creates the conditions for uniform redistribution of the social product, ensuring high level of the life quality for all segments of the population. The Belarusian socio-economic model has a scientific basis. It was built on the basis of the theoretical and methodological developments of Belarusian scientists, economists, historians, sociologists, philosophers, culturologists, and others. Due to the fact that national economic science is efficiently developing in our country, we can rely on our own research, analyze experimental international experience, develop an independent, scientifically based, well-reasoned economic policy in accordance with national interests. Interdisciplinary scientific research cluster, Belarusian School of Economics, has been created and has been actively working for several years at the National Academy of Sciences of Belarus. Its goal is the mobilization of scientific potential for solving relevant theoretical, methodological, and practical problems in the socio-economic development sphere. Belarusian School of Economics focuses the task of economic science not only in considering of the fundamental laws of social and economic life, but in providing practical recommendations for appropriate changes in the state economic policy. As the President noted in his address to the Belarusian people and National Assembly, under the conditions of global uncertainty, there can be only one Belarusian development strategy. Go your own way, live your own mind, build the future on the solid foundation of national unity. Further development of the Belarusian economy requires an appropriate response to challenges and threats. We need to find new drivers of economic development and mechanisms for ensuring the economic security of Belarus and friendly countries that will be able to ensure long-term, sustainable, and high-quality economic growth. A special role in solving this problem is assigned to scientist economists. Thus, Belarus does not just keep abreast of the most relevant trends in the field of sustainability. It is an active developer and promoter of the ideas of digitalization, smart energy and production, electric transport, decarbonization, rational, sustainable and efficient environmental management based on accurate, calculated economic logic. This allows us to feel optimistic about the future to ensure the constant growth of the well-being of the Belarusian people. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias, profesor Sakov, por su brillante exposición que esperamos que en una próxima edición de este solemne acto internacional lo podamos tener entre nosotros porque las circunstancias políticas lleguen a una solución aceptable para todos. Vamos a ceder la palabra de manera evidentemente digital al señor, al doctor Domenico Marino, que por motivos distintos a última hora ha tenido que renunciar a celebrar y a emitir sus opiniones sobre este tema junto con nosotros. También tenemos grabada su intervención y de esta manera también vamos a solicitar que haga uso de la palabra digital.
Chers académiciens, un salut cordial de ma part. Tout d'abord, je dois remercier le professeur Gilles Luca pour son invitation et m'excuser auprès de vous de ne pas pouvoir être présent en personne. L'objectif de ma conversation est de tenter de construire une taxonomie des politiques économiques possibles en présence d'externalités négatives de la pollution. Les remèdes publics et privés aux externalités ont une validité très forte s'ils sont appliqués dans des conditions de certitude, en l'absence des coûts de transaction et avec des effets réversibles. La présence de l'irréversibilité et de l'incertitude modifie considérablement la situation et détermine différentes conditions avec lesquelles les décideurs publics doivent composer. Notre point de départ dans l'analyse économique du problème environnemental sera le concept d'irréversibilité. En fait, lorsque les effets négatifs sur l'environnement peuvent être corrigés par des interventions plus futures, le problème de la décision peut être réduit à une simple analyse coût-avantage, où le coût social de la dégradation de l'environnement est comparé au coût social de l'élimination des dommages. Il reste certainement un problème microéconomique lié à l'évaluation correcte, par exemple à l'aide des prix fictifs, du coût social de l'externalité. Mais une fois qu'une estimation suffisamment précise des dommages a été réalisée, le problème de décision semble extrêmement simple. Une façon de définir l'externalité est de supposer que le coût social diverge du coût privé ou que le bénéfice social diverge du bénéfice privé. Cela conduit à l'une des formes de défaillance du marché que la littérature économique appelle externalité. Nous parlons des externalités comme d'une défaillance du marché dans le sens où les choix des individus sont faits sur la base des prix et des coûts qui ne reflètent pas la valeur réelle des ressources échangées. Il est clair que le coût social peut être supérieur ou inférieur au coût privé. Il sera plus élevé si tous les coûts de production ne sont pas supportés par les producteurs et par conséquent, ces derniers ne tiendra pas compte de ces coûts pour déterminer sa courbe d'offre. Le coût privé, en revanche, sera plus élevé que le coût social dans l'hypothèse où l'entreprise, en déterminant sa courbe d'offre, prendra en compte les coûts encourus qui ne sont pas strictement liés à la production. Les externalités de consommation concernent spécifiquement la courbe de demande et résultent d'une comparaison entre les bénéfices sociaux et les bénéfices privés. Lorsque le bénéfice social est supérieur au bénéfice privé, la courbe de demande ne reflète pas les avantages que la communauté retire de la consommation de ces biens ou services particuliers. Lorsqu'à l'inverse, le bénéfice du consommateur individuel est supérieur au bénéfice social, la demande du bien sera supérieure à celle qui est socialement efficace. L'approche de l'irréversibilité permet finalement une analyse plus efficace de cette question. Les difficultés d'estimation des prix fantômes sont en fait dues à l'inefficacité de la métrique monétaire pour mesurer des aspects qui ont des dimensions d'intangibilité. La valeur sanitaire, ou plutôt les coûts de dommages causés par les polluants, est difficile à estimer précisément en raison du caractère irréversible qu'elle possède. En fait, une façon de définir l'irréversibilité est de considérer un coût de restauration infini. Si nous sommes confrontés à des coûts de restauration infinis, le risque des effets négatifs doit être traité avec une grande prudence. Le théorème de cause qui constitue la base du traitement moderne des externalités perd donc sa valeur. En effet, la tentative d'internaliser les coûts sociaux et de transformer les fluctuations stochastiques en un modèle déterministe des valeurs du marché échoue si l'irréversibilité est présente. La séparabilité de la fonction objective nous permet d'obtenir immédiatement des résultats intéressants en étudiant les comportements asymptotiques de la fonction objective lorsque l'incertitude et l'irréversibilité tendent vers l'infini. Si l'incertitude et l'irréversibilité sont faibles, alors des politiques optimales sont celles basées sur les accords volontaires ou les coûts de restauration. Dans ce cas, l'externalité peut être gérée efficacement par des politiques d'internalisation. En revanche, lorsque l'irréversibilité et l'incertitude sont élevées, c'est le principe de précaution qui joue le rôle principal dans l'élaboration des politiques. La seule politique optimale dans ce cas est une interdiction absolue. Dans le cas d'une faible irréversibilité et d'une forte incertitude, la politique optimale devient une politique basée sur l'augmentation des informations disponibles, tandis que dans le cas d'une forte irréversibilité et d'une faible incertitude, les politiques optimales sont des politiques de restriction et de normalisation. La présence de l'incertitude entraîne des changements dans le niveau optimal de la qualité environnementale qui peut être atteint en utilisant une politique donnée. En fin de compte, donc, le résultat est qu'en présence d'irréversibilité, l'équilibre, il y a un niveau plus élevé de qualité environnementale avec un coût social plus élevé. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Domenico Marino, pour votre apportation et l'effort que vous avez fait pour pouvoir être présent ici d'une façon virtuelle. J'espère que la prochaine fois, votre santé vous permettra de compartir ces moments dans l'automne barcelonais. Merci. J'ai pris au professeur Dobrica Milovanovic qui passe ici à la présidence pour faire parler de le problème que se pose la sostenibilité du planète. Le professeur Dobrika Milovanovic, c'est le doyen de l'Université de Karagujevac en Serbie. Et ici aussi, il est membre de la Barcelona Economic Network. À vous,
Grazie,
professeur.
Your Excellency, the President of the Royal Academy, Professor Hila Luha, distinguished academicians, members of Barcelona Economic Networks, it's my real pleasure to participate again in this traditional conference in Barcelona, such an extremely beautiful city, and I want to thank you, dear President, for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to exchange views on some issues of paramount importance, such as the future of our planet. Of course, there is a growing understanding that the deepening crisis facing the world comes from the trends in our societies and economics that are becoming unsustainable. The need for increased scale of economic activities arises from both major demographic changes and the rising per capita income and shifts in consumption patterns. The way of human and economic development during past industrial revolutions has largely come at the expense of the planet. The environmental science proved significant and warning changes in Earth systems, from climate change and loss of biodiversity to changes in hydrological and nutrient cycles and consumptions of natural resources. We all know that average global temperature has increased so far about 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial levels, which means the second half of 19th century. But 2/3 of this warming has occurred since 1975. If this trend continues, we can expect a global warming of 3.2 degrees Celsius by 2100. At present, it means that at present we consume more natural resources than our planet can regenerate. In fact, we are at the moment using like we had 1.7 planets. If this trend continues, very soon we will be using two Earths, which is, of course, unacceptable. This year, Earth Overshoot Day came on 28th of July. It means that on 28th of July, from the beginning of the year until 28th of July, we spent the entire annual regeneration capacity of the planet. These days was moving, I think at the beginning of the 20th century. It used to be at the end of the year, 25th December or so. So now we can imagine what it means. Now it is about 1st of August, and even now is coming back. The only one positive sign was 2 years ago, but we are quite aware that it was because of COVID and because of reduced economic activity in particular during that year, because in 2020, that Earth Overshooting Day was on 25th August. But immediately last year and this year, it moved to the back. So if current population and consumption trends continue by the mid of 2030s, we will need the equivalent, as I said, of two Earths. And such, to support us, such ecological overshoot definitely must stop. All the climate experts are unanimous. If we want to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial level, that is goal set by Paris Agreement in 2015. By 2050, global use of coal must be reduced by 95%. 95%. Global use of oil reduced by 60% and use of gas reduced by 45%. Some estimation says, of course. Otherwise, ecosystem will begin to degrade and finally to collapse. Just to compare, today we use 76% of fossil fuels to produce energy and only 16% of renewables. It should be opposite, probably, very soon. Also, the wars and the hardening geopolitical divisions we are witnessing worsen the situation of our planet even more and emphasize the necessity to act globally on the agenda in which all countries have tremendous interest. So our crucial task is to recover and rebuild not only our environment, but also society in general, in a way that creates sustained economic growth and transform our economies while tackling the social and ecological stresses caused by our current economic models. Although it's very often assumed that economic and environmental interests are in conflict, most scientists believe that the answer still can be yes, there is a path to go and there is a solution, but only if we dramatically increase our efforts and immediately. In recent years, it has been already mentioned here, growing attention has been paid to the sustainable development that, according to the Brundtland Commission, most widely used so far, it means that it meets the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. In 2015, the same year when Paris Agreement was adopted, all the United Nations member states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As Professor Kaczmarek said, this agenda defines 17 interlinked global goals, so-called Sustainable Development Goals, which cover all aspects of human life and development. This agenda recognized that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our nature. Although this agenda is underway, progress is too slow. We already heard it's easy to say, but it's not easy to implement, to operationalize. Secretary General of United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said 2 years ago, I think, and he warns that despite considerable efforts, we are not on the track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. But he underlines that the science is our great ally in these efforts, which I guess all of us support. There is a clear consensus that achieving sustainable future for people and nature is possible with existing and future technologies and consumption, but only with major shifts in production patterns. Making these shifts will require overcoming substantial economic, social, and political challenges. The discipline of economics, which studies, of course, production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services, which are both key drivers of development, should play a central role in meeting the sustainable development challenge. The core question is how to allocate the finite resources of the planet to meet desired goals. It is widely accepted that the concept of sustainable development is based on 3 fundamental pillars: social, economic, and environmental, because the consequences of society, culture, economy, and environment are interconnected and must be considered as such. The social pillars of companies' sustainable development refers to values that promote equality and respect for individual rights. The economic pillar is based on companies' ability to contribute to economic development and growth. In other words, they must encourage and promote the protection of environment by limiting the risk posed by their production. The recycling of products and the use of renewable energy are fundamental aspects of the economic pillar development. The environmental pillar is based on commitment to protect the environment by reducing risk and measuring the environmental impacts of companies' activities. In driving a new economic models in the 21st century, the white paper of World Economic Forum 2022 described the path forward by giving the central role to four major issues. The first one is an investment in the right kinds of capital and infrastructure. The future of people and planet will be shaped by capital investment realized over the next 20 years. We need capital that can drive clean, green, job-rich, and much healthier economic growth than what came before. Investment that initiate economic transformation should not be misperceived as costs. They will not only drive a better environment, but also productivity and private opportunity. Although, according to some experts, the target 1.5 degrees Celsius is possible to achieve, but only if we invest around 2.8% of global GDP into energy sector between now and 2050. They claim that even if we were not aiming for 1.5 degrees Celsius, still we would be investing around 2% of global GDP, so only 0.8% less into energy sector because the world needs energy one way or another. The second major issue is innovation and system transformation. The fundamental structural changes needed lie in transforming the key system of energy, transport, industry, cities, and land. All require combinations of institutional change, standards, and regulations, designed and good policies. Fortunately, revolutions in digital technologies and artificial intelligence enable the management of these systems in new ways. The potential is immense, but despite some progress, the speed of change is too slow. It must accelerate. According to International Energy Agency, almost half of annual CO2 emissions reductions required to reach net zero by 2050 should come from technologies that are currently in the prototype or demonstration phase. So the next 10 years should be crucial to bring new technologies to the market, to bring solutions such as advanced batteries, green hydrogen, sustainable bioenergy, and carbon capture, utilization, and storage. The third main issue is policy for fostering investment, innovation, and just transition. A big push on investment and innovation requires credible and supportive policy and governance that can create confidence in future returns. Implementing a price on carbon is central for efficiently shifting production and consumptions towards lower carbon sources. And the fourth main issue is finance and international cooperation for economic growth. It is understood that international cooperation regarding policy, technology, and finance is crucial to realize the required big push on investment and innovation if action is to be on time and at the proper scale. Surely, economics has well-developed fields in development economics, ecological economics, environmental economics, and natural resource economics, with large bodies of research relevant to the Sustainable Development Challenge. Therefore, the application of economic principles and empirical findings should be a central component in the quest to meet the aspiration of humanity for good life, given the limited resources of our planet. Gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias, querido profesor, excelentísimo doctor Dobrica Milovanovic, por sus palabras y por la muestra que nos ha dado de la tan necesaria colaboración entre personalidades de distintos países y que, en definitiva, buscan siempre la confluencia para poder realizar nuestro objetivo y nuestro deber, una sociedad más libre, más justa y más solidaria. Gracias, muchas gracias. ¿Y quién mejor que el profesor Carlo Moravito podría finalizar con su trabajo este seminario? El recién llegado doctor Milovanovic comparte sesión con el veterano miembro de nuestra Real Academia y que desde hace tantos años, como decano primero y profesor después de la Universidad de Reggio di Calabria, pues nos ha regalado siempre con su palabra, con su sabiduría y con sus proyectos. Tiene la palabra.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, okay. Thank you. Excelentísimo presidente Gil Rúa, muchas gracias por su invitación. My presentation will be in English, but I would like to thank the academicians, Excellencia, in this room and in general for many opportunities I had to discuss with you, and so to learn so much in looking at this overlap of disciplines that is the focus of this academy. Of course, mainly focused on ciencias económicas y financieras, but looking at a more large perspective. I would like to start my presentation by rephrasing the title of this meeting. Professor, I have a lot of time left. No, I will be within my previous time. Why not a sustainable world? Technology goes to meet it. So, rephrasing in order to come back with the ideas presented by Professor Milovanovic, that probably technology can be the key for overcoming some of the limitations related to the present problem of our society. But I would like to divide my presentation in two parts. The first one, considering some limiting aspects of current technology in the digital age, particularly in the present data revolution. And the second part, considering some technologies that have already been given some opportunities of improvement of our problems. We know that the impact of new technologies and development for economic growth was many times relevant, but also comes with a price. For example, here I mentioned the transcontinental railroad that changed the history of America, United States of America, but also the genocide of American Indians. And again, the present problem of the carbon footprint, also of technology. And is it the question is the present technological development is truly sustainable, in particular looking at the digital transition, so-called digital transition. We faced basically 4 revolutions. The first one with the train and steam. The second one, the second revolution, and in particular with the industrial revolution. The third one with the automatic introduction of automation in the industries, and finally the fourth revolution, the data revolution. Can we limit its potentially negative social impact? We have discussed the positive aspects, but there are also some negative social impact. So this is based on the management of data, because the revolution is based on acquiring data, lot of data, and then process them. But of course, apart from the well-known limitations related to privacy of data and ethical aspects and so on, there is also a big problem of consumption of resources. We think that after fires, tornadoes, floods, collapse of blocks of glaciers, deforestation, ocean level rise, drought, famine, we cannot doubt more of the climate change and the global warming. So we are scientists, and in our research field that are marked by a great economical growth, at least potentially, but also by high consumption of energy and health resources. We need to consider these events and evaluate the impact and the medium-term consequences of our own research work. For example, I'm working in the field of AI. The AI-based approaches are quite energy and memory consuming. And the use of simple metrics based on essentially performance, for example, accuracy of the representation, like the standard mean square error, merely disregard the computational energy and memory requirement and complexity. For example, halving the error rates implies a multiplication by a factor of 2 to the 9 of the flops, the floating point operations during training. So a very high demand of resources. Furthermore, I think the need of transparency calls for the explainability of data-driven black box model. We find an evident contradiction between the exploding energy demand of AI and ICT that on one end promise a bright future, autonomous vehicles, early diagnosis of diseases, sophisticated human-machine interfaces, humanoid robots, high-tech agriculture, and virtual visit to museums, leisure applications. But the parallel request of energy sobriety, which is imposed by the auspices of mitigating the climate change and the anticipated collapse of civilization as we know it. The present growth of massively cloud-based AI systems are at the expenses of energy consumptions, because we are not using a computer here, but some server is located in some part of the world and consumes a lot of energies. Furthermore, we are facing the era of federated learning and moving the learning abilities at the edge. But the end-user devices for the edge are impacting on, for example, on metal extraction, with the incurred soil and water pollution and the mineral depletion from metal and fossil fuel mining. For example, a mobile phone, which we use every day, includes more than 50 different metals. many of which are rare and few of which are recyclable. So this is a great impact also with just our mobile phone. In 10 years, the absolute consumptions of AI learning skyrocketed to reach levels of hundreds of tons of equivalent dioxide of carbon for a single learning task. These levels are at standing odds with the requirements for the human society to drastically reduce its carbon footprint at a rate of 7% a year, starting today. On the basis of current technologies and the slow development of renewable energies and the problems related, 85% of the global energy mix is fossil-based today, a figure which is unaltered for 30 years. This 7% per year carbon footprint reduction is essentially equivalent to mandatory worldwide economic degrowth of 7% per year starting today. On the other hand, artificial intelligence and other relevant digital-based technologies plays a crucial role in building sustainable solutions by exploiting different technologies and interdisciplinary modeling approaches. A proper integration of technologies that implies sustainable methodologies is essential for practical deployment in already existing industrial facilities. However, there is a need of including the human beings in the loop. Need for a humanized technology capable of incorporating interdisciplinarity and the basic concept of sustainability already at the design level, not only at the application level. That means we have to approach AI with a fresh look, say low-tech learning, which is the paradigm I'm presenting quickly today. I'm the scientist that proposed this kind of approach is Dacremont, which is not an engineer, and illustrate the concrete case of a Tanzanian facilities to exemplify the value of resilience and low-tech solutions. Accordingly, the challenge lies in our ability to extract sufficient interpretability from AI machines to then instruct the dispensary workers, the AI and the user, about the lessons learned from the machines, while ultimately being freed from the machine themselves. In the end, the model extracted by deep learning approach is an underwritten decision tree, Professor Alua talked by the tree of, so we have to interpret AI machines and generate underwritten decision trees that can improve human knowledge and know-how. This is an extremely resilient approach. It has the effect of placing the knowledge produced by the AI back in the hands of human experimenters. Also, it prepares the human experimenter to the moment when sooner or later he or she may be forced to abandon an AI tool permanently. In the context of the experience of the scientists de Cremon in the unreliable Tanzanian electricity grids, this moment has already come. They have no electrical energy. So we are proposing a sustainable artificial intelligence approach. Then I very quickly, I discussed the definition of sustainability, but Professor Kapczyk already said about this. And so I go ahead with the modern concept of sustainability is based on three main pillars: the environmental sustainability, the economic sustainability, and the social sustainability. Ecological integrity should be maintained in a sort of balance with natural resources. The human communities across the globe are able to maintain their independence and have access to resources that they require. and social sustainability, universal human rights and basic necessities are attainable by all people who have access to enough resources in order to keep their families and communities healthy and secure. You can find some sources here, and I would like just to conclude my presentation by simply introducing what, as I've said, that my presentation is divided in two parts, and a novel mindset, the so-called technological eco-advantage. We say that sustainability is most often associated to the environment, but we have seen that there is also an economic and social sustainability. In particular, the sustainable digital transformation can deal with the recently proposed fields of digital and green economy, where the digital technologies can work as enablers of sustainable change. In this context, apart from the central administrations, European Community, and so on, the small and medium enterprises can be the digital front runners of the transformation. And we can see here 10 families of climate technologies that can play important parts in mitigating carbon emissions, and they are taken from the McKinsey platform for climate technology. And in particular, I will focus just 30 seconds in one of these technology. We have to say that sustainability in technology can be defined in a few ways. Substitution, because the technology fosters a shift from non-biodegradable to biodegradable materials in the production, non-renewable to renewable sources. And prevention, the sustainable technology prevents deterioration, contamination, fall of researches, and efficiency. The technology is efficient in terms of its use of energy. In conclusion, we already have sustainability in technology, particularly in some innovations like public and electric transportation systems, LED lighting in technology, solar power cell and renewable energies, carbon capture and storage technologies, and finally hydrogen-driven fuel cells. In particular, the hydrogen industry offers a good example. We give here in the presentation some figures that it is not needed to read now. In conclusion, we are going toward an approach where technological advances should be implemented looking at sustainability and resilience concepts. In particular, a novel concept of low-tech sustainable artificial intelligence is needed to exploit innovation in a way which is also respectful to the environment. And I think that the initiatives of the Barcelona Economic Network and the Royal Academy of Science, Economic and Financial Sciences could be oriented, as we already have seen in recent years, towards these novel approaches, probably taking also into account the economic perspective. So in the future, we could possibly together focus on the different perspective of these low-tech approaches. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Boris.
Gracias, 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 muchas gracias. Qué maravilla. Fíjense ustedes que hasta el último momento hemos confirmado unas teorías que flotaban en el ambiente. Se ha confirmado que no se pueden definir nuestras sociedades como conjuntos. Hay que definirlas como sistemas. Es decir, no es un grupo de cosas inconexas. Está todo cada vez más interconectado. Si cada vez está más interconectado, automáticamente el sistema es más complejo. Y cuanto más complejo es un sistema, es un sistema evolutivo, es un sistema evolutivo. Sabemos que irá hacia alguna parte, pero no sabemos hacia dónde va a ir. Es un sistema incierto. Por tanto, la ciencia que tiene que tratar estos sistemas no puede ser la misma que cuando una sociedad son conjuntos de cosas. Hay que revolucionar la ciencia económica. Y aquí estamos nosotros, aquí está la Barcelona Economic Center para conseguirlo. Gracias de nuevo, Carlo Moravito, y buen viaje a Reggio Calabria y un buen helado en Cesare. Permítanme ahora que ya desde el punto de vista más formal demos unas conclusiones muy breves, hasta el último momento. He ido recortando y añadiendo alguna cuestión, pero tengo que hacerlo, tengo que decirles alguna cosa. Al principio, mis primeras palabras eran la petición para hacer un ejercicio de imaginación con objeto de analizar unas palabras. ¿Cuáles eran las palabras del principio? El título del texto que les hice en la presentación del seminario era El sonido del silencio. Pues bien, en la despedida, ¿qué tengo que hacer? Bueno, pues en la despedida, en las conclusiones, lo que tengo que rogarles que ahondemos en el silencio para conseguir un nuevo sonido armónico. Nuestro anual encuentro de otoño, de este otoño barcelonés, toca su fin. Mis sencillas palabras de clausura intentarán ser únicamente el reflejo de la felicidad de este viejo profesor por las brillantes aportaciones de todos, repito, todos quienes han participado de manera activa en nuestro intento de revolucionar la investigación económica. Y hemos conseguido avanzar en este sentido con sus sabias reflexiones, con sus novedosas propuestas, con su espíritu rompedor de aquellos conocimientos del pasado que en tantos momentos brillaron con todo su esplendor, pero que hoy han llegado hasta el límite de su efectividad. En este seminario hemos contemplado que procedentes de otras parcelas del saber han llegado al ámbito de estudio de los problemas económicos con resultados prometedores de la lucha contra las causas que provocan la degradación del planeta, buscando sea reducir las emisiones nocivas, como la del dióxido de carbono, sea incorporando a la actividad productiva opciones limpias, como la del hidrógeno verde, que no emite, como saben ustedes, gases contaminantes, por ejemplo. En efecto, hemos constatado de los trabajos presentados que en el primero de estos caminos una vía se está abriendo paso con un cierto éxito entre los investigadores del campo económico. Nos referimos a la que lleva por nombre economía circular. De la lectura de algunos trabajos hemos podido entresacar que hoy en las investigaciones de economía circular se acostumbra a ilustrar el ciclo de vida de un producto mediante una sucesión de etapas que se inician con la entrada de materias primas en un proceso de producción, continúan con la elaboración, su eventual aprovechamiento, cerrando el círculo con una nueva utilización. En otras palabras, se busca que el valor de la parte residual no utilizable de los objetos iniciales sea mínima. De esta manera adquiere un alto protagonismo el equilibrio ecológico y la permanencia continuada de los materiales iniciales en el proceso de creación de los nuevos bienes de consumo o productos elaborados. La concepción de la economía circular se inspira así en la propia naturaleza, en la que todo es útil, en lo que nada se pierde. En el segundo camino hay que destacar las llamadas tecnologías CQs, muy dirigidas a la captación y reutilización, cuando ello es posible y conveniente, del dióxido de carbono. Puede servir de buen ejemplo de las nuevas y viejas, aunque revividas tecnologías, el actual interés por la obtención de gas renovable, conocido con el nombre de biometano, que contiene una alta concentración de metano. Pues bien, la depuración del biogás para hallar el biometano exige unos procesos que se han ido consolidando y con el tiempo sustituyendo o complementando con otras alternativas. Creemos que esta breve muestra será suficiente para poner de manifiesto la necesidad de cooperación científica y técnica en todos quienes buscamos preservar el medio ambiente de nuestro mundo. La Real Academia de Ciencias Económicas y Financieras de España ha dado muestras de su posición favorable a la colaboración interdisciplinar y lo ha hecho con la creación en su día de la red internacional Barcelona Economics Network. Algunos de sus muy ilustres miembros se hallan presentes aquí entre nosotros y han presentado ponencias de excepcional valía. Nuestra más firme llamada a las tareas investigadoras en equipo interdisciplinar, para que del trabajo silencioso conjunto se logre el sonido armónico que la ciencia así, con mayúsculas, la ciencia necesita para emitir el sonido del conocimiento transmitido a todos los países y a todos los segmentos de nuestra sociedad. Es momento de retener en nuestras memorias que dentro de los objetivos de este encuentro hay uno fundamental, aunque no exclusivo: optimizar las gestiones para conseguir frenar o eliminar, si fuera posible, las actividades que erosionan la sostenibilidad de nuestro planeta. Esta es una de las lecciones que, aun cuanto subsisten y sobreviven al paso de los tiempos, no han perdido su frescor. Pero, a pesar de su retirada presencia a lo largo de la historia, debemos recordar esta lección para que no duerma en el olvido. ¿No les suenan a ustedes las palabras: es importante conseguir medios financieros, pero no lo es menos realizar su colocación óptima? Los sabios conocimientos que este seminario han aportado los ponentes han nacido en Barcelona y en el inicio de los años 20 del siglo XXI. Cada uno de nosotros nos los llevaremos a nuestro destino guardados en esta golden box que es nuestro cerebro. Pero llevarán inscritos de manera indeleble Escuela de Economía Humanista de Barcelona. Porque si bien es cierto que hace casi medio siglo un grupo de intelectuales inquietos, disconformes con el estancamiento en que se encontraban las investigaciones en las ciencias sociales, se esforzaron en proponer razonados cambios en los entonces pilares básicos de la ciencia económica en los que personalmente tuve la fortuna de participar, ha sido precisamente en la ciudad en la que nos encontramos, Barcelona, donde se han colocado aquellos elementos básicos que han permitido, con todo rigor, merecer el calificativo de Escuela de Economía Humanista de Barcelona. Con la eclosión de esta nueva línea de pensamiento, España añade un importante eslabón en la escalera hasta el último peldaño que sube hacia la revolución de la ciencia económica. Atención, atención. Y lo hace después del transcurso de 5 siglos, cuando el pensamiento escolástico desarrollaba los últimos grandes hallazgos de los dominicos Martín de Azpilicueta, Francisco de Vitoria, Domingo de Soto y Tomás de Mercado, de la llamada Escuela de Salamanca. Escuela de Salamanca. Fíjense ustedes, siglos, el inicio, cuando aún la economía no era ciencia. Vale la pena, creemos, de meditar sobre estos dos extremos temporales de la ciencia económica, teniendo en cuenta que, para todos cuantos nos hallamos en esta sede de la Real Academia de Ciencias Económicas y Financieras de España, los trabajos avanzados que nuestra institución se realicen constituyen para los más una vivencia y para muchos una parte de sí mismo, un sublime acto de creación. Mañana nos separaremos. Cada uno se dirigirá hacia países diferentes, con hablas distintas y ricas todas ellas. Pero algo indeleble nos unirá ya para siempre: el recuerdo de nuestra presencia y pertenencia al avance más importante de la ciencia económica de los 2 últimos siglos. Nuestra tarea es, sin tardanza, finalizar el trabajo de creación emprendido y después, tan urgente como es esta, transmitir a todo el orbe los hallazgos conseguidos. Que los que la iniciaron, Kaufmann, Pesé, Zadeh, les ayuden en esta tarea. Desde el azul infinito, Jaime Gil Aloja se compromete ahora aquí a hacer en su momento también. Muchas gracias. Bien, queridos amigos sobre todo, amigos, las sesiones científicas han terminado con una cierta satisfacción y ya una cierta añoranza de volverles a ver aquí o en cualquier sitio muy pronto. Somos un poco una avanzadilla del futuro. Ha sido muy difícil luchar contra la inercia y contra la pereza mental de tantos que explican siempre lo mismo. Pero lo vamos consiguiendo. Creo que hay más ya de 1 millón de científicos en el mundo que están trabajando en esta dirección. Y todo gracias a todos ustedes. Por tanto, hasta muy pronto, hasta siempre, hasta que Dios quiera. Gracias, muchas gracias.